Welcome to Scandal Water,
where we cover the stories that have captivated the entertainment world.
I'm Candy, a longtime educator and community theater actress.
And I'm Ashley, a writer and co-founder of a local theater group.
We're two friends who share a love of entertainment.
From true crime docuseries, to blockbuster movies, to classic TV, to Broadway shows, and everything in between.
Each week, I share a compelling story related to pop culture.
And I chime in using my trivia junkie brain.
We stick to the facts until it's time to settle into our armchairs at the end.
Then we're simply two women with a strong cup of tea and even stronger opinions.
We're Scandal Water.
And if this sounds like your cup of tea,
follow the show on your favorite podcast app or the Scandal Water Podcast YouTube channel.
Oh, it's that time of day. Tune in and hear what the ladies say. It's time to bend your ear when the silver screen appears. Stories about the stage and screen and everything in between. So come on and join the fun. The curtain opens in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, Ashley.
hello.
Are you ready for this new theme?
You know I am.
I love this. You guys, a few years ago, actually, we did Monster Madness, and it was a great theme. We had some fantastic episodes. So we decided with March coming up that this might be a good time to do more Monster Madness.
I love me a good monster movie.
And we're coming in hot.
We are.
We are starting with a huge topic, King Kong.
No pun intended, right? Huge topic. King Kong is the biggest.
The biggest. So I thought I would start with this little quote. King Kong's 1933 debut was not just a terrifying monster movie, an epic fairy tale, and a tragic love story. It was also a landmark piece of cinema and the point of origin for a deeply resonant cultural myth. Its legacy encompasses a vast cinematic universe that includes 10 movies and counting, as well as novels, comics, television shows, collectibles, and even a Broadway musical.
Oh, that's right. They did have a Broadway musical.
Right? Now, here's the thing. That quote was taken from the summary of a book written by a man named Ray Morton. He is an expert on King Kong and this whole world of King Kong. So his book was King Kong, The History of a Movie Icon. It was first published in 2005, around the time that Peter Jackson's King Kong remake was coming out.
I saw that.
But here's the deal. So much has happened since that movie came out. In fact, we're already up to, I think, 13 feature-length movies about King Kong. It's increased just since he gave that quote. So the author is releasing an updated version of the book. It's coming out on March 19th. And because of all these things, he has given a lot of interviews. He shared a lot of his knowledge about King Kong. I'm going to be pulling from some of those sources. So I want to give him a little credit. But let's talk about his quote for a second. What resonated with you from those comments that he made?
Didn't you say something like a cultural shift or something in there? I had so much sympathy for King Kong. And I don't know that ties into your quote, but that's...
It does.
Peter Jackson's King Kong remake is where I entered the King Kong universe, and I remember watching it. And at the time, I had my little pet, Riley, was my little dog. And he reminded me so much of my dog because my dog could talk to me with his eyes. And I saw so much emotion and empathy in King Kong's eyes that you hadn't really seen before. And that's the film that made me a fan of King Kong.
Was the 2005 remake.
It was. And it broke my heart a little bit. It just seemed like he just had it so rough.
Yeah, he did. I think that's similar to what hit me when I read that quote. Well, I mean, first of all, I loved that they talked about how important it was in terms of cinema, that it was a landmark piece of cinema. He used that phrase, and I was like, oh, wow, I never really thought about the impact of this 1933 film. But also the beginning of his quote where he said it was not just a terrifying monster movie, which is how we came into this, right? Fitting with our theme, but also called it an epic fairy tale and tragic love story. And I went, ooh, well, that's interesting.
Who are they saying the love story is? The love story between Kong and Fay Wray?
Kong falling in love with Ann Darrow. Yes. So it set this up, I think, for me, it made me think a little differently about this topic. And so I thought that would be an interesting way to begin. More about all of that later.
Okay.
But let's follow this other thread for a second. Beyond the remake, which you connect connected to? What is your experience with King Kong?
Well, that's what started it. I have not seen, I'm not a King Kong purist because I haven't seen well, I take that back. I know I have seen the 1933 when I was in my teens. I haven't seen it in a long time. I haven't seen anything up until between that and the remake. I did not see the Jessica Lange version, but I have seen who are the ones that are doing it? It's like the Monster Universe that they've done where it was Kong Skull Island was the start of it. But I love that series.
Oh, really?
Love
Okay.
it. Yes. I liked the Kong versus Godzilla, and they've kind of branched off in Kong. There was one that we didn't even know that had come out. There was another one that came out last year and I watched. And they kind of changed it. This version of Kong was not in love with a woman, a grown woman, but he was friends with a little girl.
Okay. They had an emotional connection.
Yeah, and she's also deaf. The little girl was deaf, so
nice.
she could sign and he would sign back to her.
I love that.
I know.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Well, my background, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'd never seen the 1933 movie. I did see the Peter Jackson remake, and I've seen a few of the films along the way. In fact, oh goodness, I should have written this down, but the movie that came out with Kyle Chandler and Millie Bobby Brown.
Oh yeah, that was part of the
recent.
that was Godzilla and Kong.
I saw that one. But what made this fun for me was when I started researching, I did not have time to go back and watch the entire 1933 movie, but I started pulling up clips and got pulled right into it. And of course, all the research, it just makes it so fascinating. So I'm excited to talk about this today. I'm going to tell you though, we've already alluded to this. It's such a big topic. There's so much that followed the original that for sake of time, we're probably just going to live in the origin story and the very first movie and then, the rest of it we may mention, but basically this is where we're
How it got started.
Right, exactly.
Kong origins.
Nice. I like it. Well, an IMDb summary, very brief, says a film crew goes to a tropical island for a location shoot where they capture a colossal ape who takes a shine to their blonde starlet and they bring him back to New York City.
First mistake. They bring him back to New York City.
Was it that the first mistake, Ashley?
Well,
was
I don't
that
know.
The first
Maybe
one?
not. Maybe not. That's the point of conflict. The first mistake was going there.
Definitely an issue, though. Yes. All right. So there was a quick refresher. Now let's get into how it all started. This fella that I mentioned before, Ray Morton, by the way, one of the sources was a Woman's World article where Ray spoke quite a bit about this very topic, the origin story. I mean, he is most excited about the 1933 original King Kong film.
Okay.
Here is a quote from him. He's one of the few classic horror characters that is original to cinema. Almost all the others were adapted. Kong literally can't exist without that one frame, 24 frames a second process. He is cinema.
Wow. I never thought of that he doesn't have a book origin.
No. In fact, we're going to talk about this, but this script, this movie came first. This is not a book adaptation, made into film.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Has there been books written about it? I bet there has.
There have.
Of course.
There absolutely have. All right. So how did that very first story come to be? Well, it goes back to a filmmaker named Marion C. Cooper. Now, have you heard of him before?
Mm-mm.
His first name, it's a fella. He spells his name, or he did spell his name, Merian. Hadn't heard that before, but unusual name. But he is the man who invented King Kong. He himself had an interesting backstory. I'm not going to touch on everything, but just briefly, he was a war hero who had been shot down twice while serving during wartime, 2 different wars. And at one point, he escaped from a prisoner of war camp.
Wow.
I mean, this man had
in
a
the
history.
Jungle? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So when he returned from war, Marion was a reporter for a while, and then he did some filmmaking. And he got into this partnership with a man named Ernest Shadesack. And this was a big deal, okay? This is going to be important to this Kong story, okay? Because this partnership, these two fellas would go on expeditions together, and they would make documentary films about their travels. And it was one of those experiences that actually led Marion, I'm going to call him by his first name just for sake of clarity.
Sure.
They led Marion to come up with the idea for King Kong. Here's a quote from Ray Morton explaining what happened. Cooper, an adventurer turned filmmaker, specialized in what were called natural dramas. gorillas. Stage narratives shot in exotic locations, blending real people and real animals with heightened adventure. On one expedition, he observed a family of baboons, which sparked his interest in making a movie about apes. Meanwhile, his friend Douglas Burton became the first Westerner to see a Komodo dragon on the island of Komodo. The two fascinations came together in Cooper's earliest concept. He wanted to bring a real gorilla to Komodo to fight a real Komodo dragon on camera. That was going to be King Kong.
So it's like Kong versus Godzilla, but early.
But
in the natural habitat.
Yes, that was his version.
Okay.
Yeah. In a different article, Ray Morton gave a little bit more detail about this initial story plot that Marion had in mind. Basically, in the natural drama that he envisioned, after fighting the Komodo dragon, the gorilla would get captured and brought back to New York City, where he would be put in a zoo, and then the gorilla would escape and wreak a lot of havoc before finally being killed. That was kind of his early concept of how this was going to go.
Okay.
All right. Now, he did also plan to have the gorilla at some point kidnap a woman somewhere along this expedition.
Mm-hmm.
Now, during that time period, when people didn't, this is in the 1930s, when people didn't know much about gorillas, there was a myth that gorillas would steal women and run off with them into the jungle. That was kind of this thing that people would talk about. It was kind of this legend thing. He was
going to play into it.
Yeah, he was playing into that. So he thought, okay, this would be an interesting story complication. Maybe this will be a piece of my story. Now, an article I found about the film on the Golden Globes website points out that jungle films were very popular at this time.
Tarzan.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. There had been very successful Tarzan movies, several of them, and Cooper and Shadesack had made a previous animal film in 1927 called Chang, a drama of the wilderness, which was about monkeys. Mm. So this concept that Marion had in mind really fits what was popular and also their skill set, what they were interested in doing. Okay. Now, the problem was, this was during the Great Depression. That put a stop to their plans. They couldn't afford to fund an expedition and to do all these really expensive things. One of the things that Marion was doing, he had a job working as David O. Selznick's assistant at RKO.
Okay.
And one of the things I believe that they asked him to do was to sometimes be the fella who would look at other people's projects and decide, is this worth pursuing or not?
Kind of like a producer.
I guess. Yeah, something like that. He came across this project that was being worked on by a man named Willis O'Brien, who was a stop motion animator. And he was doing this through RKO. Now, what O'Brien was working on was a dinosaur movie.
Yes.
Marion Cooper thought there was some merit to Willis O'Brien's film idea, to what he was working on, but he thought it would benefit from having a strong central character. He loved O'Brien's techniques. So it gave him the idea. You know what? What if we kind of brought his project, his idea together
with my idea.
Exactly. And he really, really loved the technique that O'Brien was using. He thought stop motion might be the way to do his gorilla movie without having to spend a lot of money, without having to travel around the world. And they could do a lot of this on a lot at RKO. He could do it on sound stages. So all of this was just kind of fitting together for him.
Marion's going smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Let's do this thing. So he suggested the two of them merge their projects into one, and this is what kicked things off for King Kong. Now, if you look at the credits, one of the things that I thought was interesting, it lists Edgar Wallace and Marion C. Cooper both as the story creators. Edgar Wallace, that name, is also credited as one of the 3 screenplay writers, along with a man named James Creelman and Ruth Rose. Are you familiar with Edgar Wallace?
The name sounds familiar, but no, not to know.
I had no idea who he was. And I was very confused. So I'm looking into this. To me, it made sense. Okay, Marion, of course, is going to be listed as one of the story creators. Yeah. And following that trail for just a second, several sources mentioned, I haven't said this yet, but they said that one scene that Marion had in his mind from the very beginning almost was he envisioned this big climactic scene with his protagonist or his central character, the gorilla, on top of the world's tallest building fighting airplanes. So that was another thing in his story concept. He kind of had an idea of this might be something that would happen towards the end and, in his mind kind of working backwards from there.
Okay.
So again, I'm thinking, well, it seems like Marion is the fella who really came up with this whole story concept.
Yeah.
Where's Edgar Wallace coming in?
Yeah.
Turns out Edgar Wallace was this highly successful, incredibly prolific British author known for his crime thrillers. He was almost an Agatha Christie.
Okay, so he would come in and he would add the punch to your idea. He's going to help you flesh this out. So you've got the idea, let's plot it, and let me help you with the dialogue, and let's get this going kind of thing.
Absolutely. He was a script doctor.
Okay,
He was
that's
a
what I was
script
gonna
doctor.
guess, is a script doctor.
Yeah. And in 1931, he had moved to the U.S., specifically to Hollywood, and he had begun working as a script doctor for RKO. Now, according to a couple different sources, one of those being the Golden Globes article that I referenced, Edgar Wallace was hired to write the script for the King Kong movie, to work on that primarily because he was so famous. Marion Cooper was a smart fella. He knew how to
attached his
do
name.
things. Yep, he thought this association, Edgar Wallace being associated with this project, with this film, this is going to be good for this film.
Smart guy.
He was smart. So that's how Edgar Wallace came into this. Okay, unfortunately, Edgar only had time to write a very, very rough first draft before he died unexpectedly of a health condition.
Oh, Edgar.
Yeah, and that's why we have those other writers credited for writing the script. In fact, I believe there were more who worked on it than the ones who ended up in the credits. But again, James Krillman was one of those, and the other was Ruth Rose, who was Ernest's wife.
Oh,
Yeah, they gave her a lot of credit. She was supposed to have been instrumental in making that script significantly better, picking up the pacing, improving the dialogue, working on that theme. I mean, she was the one, I think, who really ensured they had this polished shooting script to work with. So the directors of the film were the same team of Marion C. Cooper and Ernest Shadesack. The two also served as producers, along with David Selznick, who was listed as executive producer. That's not a bad thing either,
No, it's
right?
not.
So the cast. There were so many people in this cast. You guys are going to have to forgive me, okay? Because here's the deal. I'm going to tell you about two of the three primary leads, but I'm going to live with Fay Wray here.
Fay Wray.
Yeah.
She's the girl you all
Yeah.
remember.
So-
if you know anything, you know Fay Wray.
Absolutely. So here we go. Robert Armstrong was the fella who played filmmaker Carl Denham, and Bruce Cabot took on the role of first mate Jack Driscoll, who also becomes the love interest to the female lead character, Anne Darrow. Now, Joel McCrea, who was in The Most Dangerous Game with Fay Wray, that was another film that was being made right at the same time.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he was the first choice for Bruce Cabot, but he turned down the part, either because of the pay or the physicality that the role demanded, depending on the source. We're not sure, but those were the two rumors that were said. So it ended up that Bruce Cabot was the fella who did get that role. Now, let's move on to Fay Wray. She, of course, played Anne Darrow. Jean Harlow was the first choice for the role, but
okay.
she was committed to MGM. She was unable to take it, so Marion approached Fay Wray, with whom he'd already worked, and all the sources say he really liked her. He
good.
thought she did good work. So I think he was pleased that
Well, probably he was looking for that name. Jean Harlow would have been a big name. So
Right.
he's trying to find something.
That's a good point. Well, there's a cute story about how Marion did approach her. In her autobiography called On the Other Hand, Fay Wray said
It's adorable
I know,
title.
that was really clever, wasn't it? But she said that when Marion Cooper offered her the role of Anne Darrow, playing opposite, quote, the tallest, darkest leading man in Hollywood, she thought her co-star was going to be one of the big name actors like, Clark Gable, Cary Grant, somebody like that. She was a little disappointed
She's like,
to
it's a
find out.
monkey.
Yeah, he
Not
met
even a real
huge
monkey.
gorilla.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, she was not blonde, so she did wear a blonde Max Factor wig for the entire film. And in taking on this iconic role, she earned the title of the very first Scream Queen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Fay said that she spent only about 10 weeks total working on King Kong, but in a 1989 interview, she said those 10 weeks were spread out over the course of something like 10 months.
Oh, wow.
Now, during this time, she was working. She was making other films, one of those being The Most Dangerous Game that we just mentioned. She was making other horror films, by the way. So according to an IndieWire article, it was from this coincidence that she was given the title Cinema's First Scream Queen, something that she was not excited about, by the way. Yeah, for many years, specifically, she was disappointed that here she had this larger body of work, but it seemed like what she was remembered for was King Kong. And she didn't feel like that was her strongest performance. So for quite some time, she seemed a little reluctant to talk about it or to, to really lean into the praise that was heaped on that film. But in later years, she came to embrace it.
And that's usually what happens. They get some kind of enormous fame from a singular role that they are then defined by, and they kind of buck it a little bit, but then they grow to accept it.
And be proud of it. She recognized this was her lasting legacy. So I found an interview that she gave. This was for, it's kind of sad. She had a very close friend named Rick McKay who was making a documentary about her. So she gave him some interviews. Then she ended up passing before it was made. He passed too, and it never came to full fruition.
Good golly.
But little pieces of it did get out.
Okay.
And I found one of those clips on YouTube. So I'm going to play just a very short, it's something like 1 minute long clip from Fay talking about her acting in King Kong.
Okay.
Do you think that it could have helped that 5 years earlier you were working in silent films? That your technique was born in silent films? Because a lot of what you're doing, you're communicating everything with your face.
Yes, that's true. Well, that is really quite true. Yeah, yes. I didn't have to make any sounds at all until the last moment. Or last few seconds, right? I just knew that I had to keep in motion. I mean, it had to be an interesting scene. And I figured about where I would put my hands, my arms, how I would keep it alive until that moment, when they told me that I was supposed to scream and did. That Marion Cooper said to me, "Scream, Fay, scream for your life." Well, who wouldn't? Even if you could only just imagine a giant creature of that kind,
Right. Perhaps if you didn't see it, you could scream. Throw your arms across your eyes and scream, and scream for your life.
It's a pretty nice scream, isn't it?
That was a good scream.
It was. I should have told you the scene that she was talking about was where she's actually on the boat prior to arriving at Skull Island, and the director of, the character who's playing the movie director is saying, now you're going to pretend that you see this, this creature, and you're going to scream. And so watching her do it, I thought it was really cool to hear her analysis, because you could 100% see how she was acting with her face, acting with her body, acting with her eyes, so that it was this build up until finally you got the scream. It was really nice. But on a related note, actually, you were the first person who said this to me.
Oh no, what?
Talking about her screams, I believe you're the one who mentioned her big scream session. Remember, Fay Wray, she famously called it her area of agonies.
Really?
Oh, maybe you weren't the one who told me.
Okay. This doesn't sound familiar.
Okay, well, all right, here you go then.
But that doesn't mean anything, because I do forget more than I remember of things that I say.
Well, while she was filming, of course, there were several times when she screamed, but they ended up adding a whole lot of screaming in post-production. So they actually took her into a sound booth after they'd finished filming, and she spent something like 3 hours, possibly longer, one gut-wrenching scream after another.
Her voice had to be shot.
Well, right. They said she was hoarse. It was those screams, many of them that they chose to use, were added in post-production, and then they kept her screams in the studio's sound effects library. And so for years afterwards, other filmmakers would pull her screams
kind of like
to
a Wilhelm
use in movies.
Scream, right?
Exactly. 100%.
I could have said that. I don't remember, though. Sounds like something I would have known.
It was cute. I'm sorry, I'm going down a rabbit trail for just a second. But in the same interview, she talked about, she goes, I don't know why everybody thought my screams were so great. But I guess it's nice that, I mean, it was cute. It was cute.
She was very humble.
She was. But two sweet little stories that speak to the lasting impact that she did make with her portrayal of the beauty to King Kong's beast. In 1983, on the 50th anniversary of the film, a New York theater held a Fay Wray Scream-a-thon contest in its lobby. And in 2004, when she passed, the lights of the Empire State Building were dimmed for 15 minutes in her honor.
That is precious.
I know. Well, on that note, let's take our break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about filming and some of those special effects.
There's not much we love more than spilling the tea with you every Tuesday. So, we've decided to occasionally take a moment to thank a few of our supporters who help make this possible.
Along with the fun, producing a weekly podcast also brings with it more time and expense than you might expect. Your financial generosity in becoming a member through Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon, both of which can be found on our website or social media accounts, allows us to keep creating these episodes.
We'd like to extend our deepest gratitude to one of our current members, Janie. As a thank you, Janie and anyone else who becomes a Scandal Water supporter will receive perks like discounts on merch and access to exclusive bonus content such as our minisodes.
If you'd like to hear your name on that roster, become a member using one of the links on social media or on our website, scandalwaterpodcast.com.
Until then, we lift our cup to you, Janie.
Cheers! And we're back. So let's talk about the filming. Several sources gave conflicting information that is so normal. Most seem to agree that the budget for King Kong was somewhere between $400,000 to $600,000.
I would still take that amount to make a movie today.
Yes.
I would still take that.
Well, whatever it was, they went way over.
Oh, no.
Even though they tried to take shortcuts. In fact, just to give you an example, remember we talked about the fact that they were filming different movies at the same time.
Wait, the same company was filming different movies? Or
Yes.
just oh,
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. RKO was struggling.
Okay.
And so one of the things that the big wigs there had been told was, we've got to get some films out and we got to make some money.
Okay.
And remember, I need to keep reinforcing this. The Great Depression is not helping.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? People are not spending their money to go to movies when they're struggling to make ends meet. They were on a mission to make movies. They were on a mission to do it as economically as they could. So one of the shortcuts they took, because they were filming The Most Dangerous Game, which takes place in a jungle, they used the exact same jungle set.
Oh, that's smart.
For King Kong.
That's
yeah,
smart.
Saved them a lot of money. Even so, they went way over budget. Now, a primary reason for this is because of the special effects they use.
The stop motion.
Yes, but they did other things too. I mean, the stop motion was huge, but they did several things that were really impressive. In fact, I saw the term groundbreaking used several times, and a lot of the credit goes to the fella that we've already named, that stop motion animator, that special effects genius, Willis O'Brien. His technique was described in a Time magazine article as an unprecedented blending of a stop motion monster with live action footage of actors. Now, by the way, just to kind of give you a little background, this fella, Willis O'Brien, had worked on some projects for Tom Edison at one point. Thomas Edison, yes. And so from what I gathered doing this research, people generally view Willis O'Brien as both a pioneer and a genius in his field. People will often refer to him as the father of stop motion.
Cool.
Yeah. What he and his team did took incredible ingenuity and also a great deal of time and work, and of course, cost money. The same Time article I just mentioned goes on to say, quote, "The first Kong was a feat of stop motion animation. Footage of puppets no bigger than 2 feet tall and constructed from ball and socket joints and rabbit fur was combined with live action shots using techniques like double exposure and matte painting, with 1 minute of film taking as long as 150 hours to produce."
It is a phenomenon of patience. Stop motion, just I'm into the intricate detail stuff, but I don't think I could last through stop motion. I just couldn't handle it.
little editorial comment. When I watched those clips of the 1933 movie, on the one hand, I was so impressed. I'm thinking for 1933, this was like the Jurassic Park of that time. This was so innovative, so engaging, so just awe-inspiring to see this on film. And yet there was another part of me that was like, okay, it's a little jerky, and that stop motion animation kind of makes me think of
Rudolph?
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and the Abominable Snowman.
Yes.
I was like, I kept going, wait a second,
Yeah.
So it was a little funny, but it really was groundbreaking, right? Here's a quote from a 2025 Woman's World article by Ed Gross, where he also speaks to this point. To this day, King Kong remains a towering achievement of ingenuity and early effects mastery. Every part of the production, ranging from sets to models, puppets, photographic tricks, and music, was pushed to its limits simply because no one had ever made a movie like this before. And nowhere is that clearer than in the astonishing range of tools the filmmakers built to bring Kong to life. So to follow that rabbit trail just a bit further, here are just a couple more examples of some techniques they used to bring Kong to life. In addition to miniatures, they built a full-scale mechanical bust of King Kong that showed him from the chest up.
Yeah.
People inside that bust operated it using levers, and it could snarl, breathe, blink, and
That's
move its jaws.
amazing.
And I have a picture that came from Ray Morton. It was in that Woman's World article. Fascinating to me to see some of these. I have lots of photos of the puppets and the bust and everything. I could not tear myself away. I was like,
You were into this.
I was like, this is fascinating. But the team even put that bust on a portable cart so they could just kind of move it from one
That's smart.
soundstage to the other. It is crazy to see this huge bust on this cart.
Of this gorilla.
Yes. So for the scenes where Kong is holding Anne, they created a huge mechanical hand that they raised using a crane. Here's a quote from Fay Wray's autobiography where she talks about that experience. Quote, "The big arm, about 6 feet long, was attached to a lever so it could be raised or lowered. I would stand on the floor while a grip would place the flexible fingers around my waist in a grip secure enough to allow me to be raised to a level in line with an elevated camera. There was a wind machine to give motion to my clothes, and I struggled to give the illusion that Kong was a fearsome 40 feet tall."
It's amazing how much magic goes into movie making.
No, it is crazy. They had to create a huge foot for close-ups of Kong stepping on people. In the Empire State Building sequence, which the Golden Globes article refers to as one of the most famous scenes in cinema history, they blended several techniques: animation for Kong, miniature work for the building, and actual footage of biplanes circling the real New York skyline.
Oh, that's neat.
Now, one apparent drawback to all these techniques was, this is me inferring, I'm assuming that it was the techniques that made it a little harder to keep King Kong's size consistent, because this is something several sources pointed out. His size changes through the course of the movie. There are times when he looks about 18 feet tall. There's times when he's like maybe 25 feet tall. There's times when he's probably closer to 40 or 50. So his size is not consistent.
Interesting.
And I don't know if that's because of all that, in this one we're using
He's
miniatures.
gaining power,
and this,
Candy.
Right.
He's gaining power.
Well, it's funny.
The power of love.
Ray Morton says, this is him, his opinion. He said that Marion Cooper did not actually start with the intent of making King Kong a huge, oversized gorilla. Even though Marion would always say, like when he would talk about it later, he was like, oh, no, he was always supposed to be. He was always supposed to be big. But Ray maintains that what actually prompted the filmmakers to realize they had to make him huge was when they started thinking about that fight scene between King Kong and a T-Rex. Ray Morton said, quote, "Later, Cooper told the story as if Kong was always meant to be gigantic. But if you see the early materials, he wasn't.
He was just a regular size.
Yeah, but when they had him fighting against a T-Rex, they were like,
Oh, that's not gonna work.
This is not going to work. We
Gotcha.
got to make him bigger." So by the time the film came out, King Kong's size was definitely in keeping with his billing as the 8th wonder of the world, which was the title given to him by the men in the movie who were trying to profit off of him by putting him on public display when they took him back to New York. But anyway, back to the special effects. One source commented that even though the stop motion made King Kong noticeably jerky. It was novel. It was incredibly impressive to audiences at that time. Another source described it as, quote, the spectacle of something from classic Hollywood that was jaw-dropping in 1933 and still holds up today.
I compare it to when we saw the remake and you see the CGI version of Kong.
It's amazing.
We were amazed.
Amazing. So let's talk about a few other notable things that happened in post-production, in addition to what we've already said about Fay's screams being added in. Okay? This is kind of a, I don't know what you would call it, a myth or a legend. People often talk about the lost scene. Have you heard about this?
No, what is it?
Okay. They call it the spider pit sequence.
Oh.
All right. It was this scene early in the movie where King Kong shakes 4 sailors off a log bridge, which causes them to fall into a ravine. And when they're in there, they're shown eaten alive by giant spiders and other insects.
No,
okay?
thank you. No, thank you.
Now, this is kind of a mystery. I thought this was interesting. Okay, so legend has it that they held a movie preview or put it in front of a test audience to gauge audience reaction. And when they did, they noticed that the audience had such a strong reaction to that particular scene. Some people walking out, some people unable to focus back in on the movie because they just kept talking about it.
It freaked them out too much.
Yes. According to the IMDb trivia notes, Marion Cooper reportedly said, quote, it stopped the picture cold. So the next day back at the studio, I took it out myself.
Wow.
So we have this story that
He's saying
seems
it was
very
there.
clear cut,
Yeah.
right? But other people claim it was never even filmed. The movie came out in 1933, but in 1938 they had codes that were stricter. And so when it was released in 1938, a lot of the scenes were cut. Okay, there were
Like the Hays Code, you mean?
Probably. I didn't
Okay.
look at the name. I just saw it was referred to as 1933 was pre-code, and
Yeah,
then
that's probably
right. I think you're probably right. So when the movie came out in 1938 and years afterwards, it did not contain a number of scenes. One being, for example, that scene, if you've seen it, where Kong pulls a woman out of a high-rise building, thinks it's Anne, realizes it's not, and drops her.
Oh.
That was a scene that was cut.
Okay.
Kong stepping on some of the people or putting some people in his mouth and kind of chewing them. Those were some of the ones that had been cut. Now, those scenes that had been edited out ended up getting put back into the movie. I believe it was the mid-70s.
Okay.
That spider scene never came back. No,
Well, it could have been lost or it could have never existed.
and that's the mystery because, again, while they found those other scenes and put them in, even though I hear that they're a little grainy because what they found them on like a 16 millimeter film strip or something.
Probably somebody that, like in our day, they film with a cell phone in the theater.
Right. So some people argue that they had planned that spider pit sequence, but it never actually got filmed, that it might have been still prints of the scene or so anyway, that's kind of the mystery. But a fun side note is Peter Jackson made a point to include the spider pit sequence in his 2005 version, and he tried to honor the vision, based on notes and research and different things that were said, the vision that was supposed to have been there for the original.
I sure don't remember it, so I must have blocked that because that would have been horrific to see.
I don't remember it either, to be honest, but yeah. Okay, so another important element of the movie that was added in post-production was the score. Now, do you know about the score?
No, not a thing.
Me either. And this was impressive. Okay, this was impressive. The composer who scored King Kong was a man named Max Steiner, who would go on to score other huge films, many. I'm only going to name 2, Gone with the Wind and Casablanca.
That's what he scored?
Those are 2 of the many he scored.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's big.
Very
That's big.
impressive films.
Yeah.
Very impressive films. Okay. Now, at this time, according to an opinion that this man, Max Steiner, expressed at some point in an interview, filmmakers generally viewed the score as a necessary evil in a film like this. They felt that a score could often slow down, the post-production process. It could delay the release of a film. They were not excited about having an original score. In fact, to save money, some of the studio bosses for King Kong suggested just pull old tracks from
Oh,
other
no.
movies. Well, that's what they did. That was a common
Okay.
practice at that time. However, because some were concerned about the special effects looking a little clumsy, a little jerky,
They
there-
said, let's use the music as a cushion.
right. Some of them said, you know what? Maybe we should have an original score. Maybe that'll help with the flow. Exactly. I like your wording. Now, Marion Cooper definitely wanted it. And when they said, nope, it's too expensive, we're not going to do this, he offered to pay for the orchestra out of his own pocket. I believe he later was reimbursed.
Good.
But he pulled his own money out and was like, okay, fine.
need this.
We need this. This man named Stephen C. Smith wrote a biography of Max Steiner, this composer, and he said that it's not that Max wrote the very first film score ever written when he did this for King Kong, because it's not. It was not the very first time that there was an original score ever written for a film, but he said this was an early one for what they call the talkies. And he said, historically speaking, this one composed for King Kong is the most influential film score of all time.
No way.
That's what he says. This is an excerpt from an interview that biographer gave to Variety magazine where he explains just a little bit about the significance of this score. Now, when he says he's talking about the composer Max Steiner.
Okay.
He's the one who first put it all together at the dawn of the talkies. This idea of how to write orchestral music under and around dialogue, something that producers and directors really were very suspicious of in the first years of sound film. They didn't want music in dramatic films. It was okay if it was a musical. And Steiner is the guy who figured out not just how to write music around dialogue, but how to write themes for characters and shape them subtly throughout a film. Exactly what John Williams does in a Star Wars film, or the composers for a Marvel film do today. There are so many devices that he uses, whether it's the way he writes a love theme for Anne that becomes a theme of absolute terror for her as the film goes on, or the way that Kong's theme starts off being about the horror and the power of a monster, and by the end has become an elegy for a fallen anti-hero.
Wow.
And Steiner is the one who made film music a medium that did not just simply repeat what we already see, but revealed what characters are thinking.
Wow.
Which
Music.
remains one of the most powerful things that film music can do.
Wow. Wow.
I know. I was like, what a tribute, first of all,
Yeah.
to Max Steiner. And secondly, what a layer that adds to my appreciation of the movie.
Of the score.
Yes, yes. Found that fascinating. Now, final thing we'll talk about in terms of post-production. This is what you alluded to earlier. Another thing that happened while the filmmakers were readying the movie for distribution was that they were already strategically promoting the movie. And one very smart thing they did was publish a novel, which was also called King Kong.
Okay.
Yeah. Delos W. Lovelace created a novel version of the script at the request of Marion Cooper.
This guy.
He was
he's
on it.
So smart.
I know. Yeah, and the point, of course, was he wanted it to generate some excitement. The novel was based on the script. So remember, some things got edited out. So the novel contains some things that did not appear in the movie, such as that spider pit
Okay.
sequence that we
Okay.
mentioned. And it also gave a little extra backstory for the main characters.
That's so smart.
It
What
was
a smart guy.
Brilliant. The novel came out in December of 1932, and the movie first premiered in early March of 1933. In fact, we looked it up. March 2nd, which is why we're releasing this podcast.
March 3rd.
That's right, in conjunction with the premiere date. But just to say it again, this was not your typical situation of film being based on a book. This is a situation
Opposite.
where, yeah. So, of course, the studio used other methods to promote the movie too, from great poster artwork to newspaper ads to radio features, and it all worked. It all worked beautifully because people could not wait to see the eighth wonder of the world make his film debut when the movie was released.
I'm so happy for Marion, like in the past. Like, he worked so hard on this, and it just all turned out right.
He did such a good job. All right, bringing this to a close. How the movie was received. King Kong was a sensation. Again, I say it for like the fourth time. We have to remember the country was in the midst of the Great Depression. These were people who did not have money to go see movies. And yet
They did.
They did.
A lot of it
They-
was coping with the Great Depression, though. They needed that escape from their
Yes.
crushing everyday life.
Absolutely, 100%. Ray Morton said in a Vanity Fair article that it opened at Radio City and at the Roxy across across the street, he says, referring to a pair of enormous 6,000-seat theaters where films didn't normally open simultaneously.
6,000 seats.
He goes on to say, it sold out every show at each theater for at least the first 10 days.
Wow.
Yeah. The estimate is, again, sources conflict in what they say, but most seem to agree the movie cost approximately $670,000 to make, and most every source agrees that it brought in around $90,000 just in its opening weekend,
Wow.
which was 100% record-breaking at that time. And again, the numbers are just all over the place, but Wikipedia estimates the film brought in around $2 million on that first release. And again, most every source agrees that it was the massive success of King Kong that helped save RKO from bankruptcy.
Well, good job, Kong.
Yeah. And then, as we've said, its massive success also led to a lot of other Kong spin-offs. In fact, before 1933 was over, they had already put out Son of Kong.
They were doing it.
Armchair psychologist.
All right. Well, I think that brings us to the armchair, Ashley. I thought I would hit you with something different.
Okay.
We alluded to the theme of King Kong, but we didn't really talk about it. I found a review of the movie's impact that was written by Roger Ebert in the early 2000s. So he was kind of reflecting on this movie that had been out for decades. And he offered this opinion related to the theme. So I'm going to let you listen and then give your thoughts.
Okay.
Okay? But King Kong is more than a technical achievement. It is also a curiously touching fable in which the beast is seen not as a monster of destruction, but as a creature that in its own way wants to do the right thing. Unlike the extraterrestrial spiders in the Alien pictures, which embody single-minded aggression, Kong cares for his captive human female, protects her, attacks only when provoked, and would be perfectly happy to be left alone on his Pacific island. It is the greed of a Hollywood showman that unleashes Kong's rage, and anyone who thinks to exhibit the beast on a New York stage in front of a live audience deserves what he gets. Indeed, more than he gets. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, he taps into what, again, my experience with him comes from the remakes, but he taps into where he says he just wants to be left alone. And if you come into his territory, then you kind of get what you deserve. He's just trying to exist. He's taking care of Fay because he loves Fay as like in a romantic, weird sense. In the one I saw, it's the little girl. He's protecting the little girl.
Right.
But he just, that's the aura I get from him, is he just wants to exist. He just wants peace. He wants peace in his home. And he doesn't want to be taken away from that. He just doesn't want to be put on a stage and used or manipulated or treated as some kind of object.
Right.
So that's what I take from it, is I thought that he was a gentle soul who had violent tendencies, but only if you infringed upon his goodwill or infringed upon his where he was.
So what this made me think, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not the Kong expert, obviously.
Well, I'm not either. I've just seen the later ones.
But I did notice, again, not having the opportunity to see the entire movie, I did see the Beauty and the Beast elements. I saw the quote at the beginning that set it up. I saw the references. And then, of course, at the end.
Doesn't he say 'twas beauty that killed the beast?
Yes. And so I saw that, and it was an interesting thing because in my mind, the first film version had the Beast loving the Beauty, but I did not see
reciprocation.
No, 100%. I felt like Ann Darrow, Fay Wray's Ann Darrow, honestly, they didn't give her a lot to do. It was the 1930s.
Right.
She was pretty much just a victim who screamed and waited for somebody else to save her. I mean, that was just, she did a fantastic job in her role.
That was her assignment.
But that was her role. That's who she was at that time. And my understanding is, if I'm correct, later versions did have that Fay Wray character feeling a little protective to Kong. You know, don't shoot him, don't kill him. You know, there was a little bit of emotional connection there that I don't believe was necessarily in the first film. So that's one thought that comes to my mind, is that I think over the years they've developed possibly that Beauty and the Beast reciprocal relationship a little bit more. But
not romantic.
But
just
not
care.
romantic. Oh, no. Just an emotional connection. Absolutely. The other thing that comes to my mind is what you said right towards the beginning. You were talking about being able to act. And I'm so impressed with their special effects. Here we are in 1933. They're using puppets and busts and mechanical things. And yet you did feel
The emotion?
Kong's emotions. And so that's, I think, what I'm impressed with right now. I'm impressed with the two leads. I'm impressed with Fay Wray, who did exactly what she was meant to do in her role and killed it. And
She did kill it. She killed the beast.
and King Kong, these special effects artists, to make him, let's face it, he was chewing people, stepping on people.
And we're still like, go
He was
Kong,
doing terrible
go
things,
Kong.
and yet you did feel sad at
when
the
he
end
died.
when he died. So that to me took some skill.
And I'm glad they did not kill him in the new versions, the Kong
Right.
Skull Island and onwards. He is still with us.
Goodness. All right. I feel like we have to end with a big cheers to Marion C. Cooper.
Absolutely.
But Fay Wray and Willis O'Brien, I mean, I think he brought Kong to life.
Yeah.
So let's give him some credit too. Cheers
Absolutely.
to you guys.
Cheers.
If you love what we do, please rate and review our show or become a supporter through Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon. Whether a single gift or recurring monthly donation, your support is what allows us to keep the tea brewing.
Subscribe on your favorite podcast app or the Scandal Water Podcast YouTube channel. And follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Show notes are available at our website, scandalwaterpodcast.com, where you can also access the merch store and more.
This episode was executive produced by Candy Thomas, that's me, and Ashley Raymer Brown.
That's me.
It was researched and written by Candy Thomas and edited by Ashley Raymer Brown.
A special thank you to Josh Martin, who wrote, composed, and performed the Scandal Water theme and other music. Matt C. Adams, who created the artwork, and Joshua Reith, who designed our website and provides ongoing technical support.
As a reminder, this podcast is purely for entertainment purposes. The thoughts and opinions of the host during each episode of Scandal Water are their own and do not reflect the opinions of any future guests, advertisers, or clearly professional psychologists. Thanks for listening.